I'm not exactly 40, but I feel like I'm 40 in my body. I feel like I'm an old sack of welcome. If you're here, you want to learn something. And I might be the guy to show you. I'm going to try. Anyways, so you want to catch a salmon. And you see all of your friends catching these really cool salmon. And you went, hey man, I think it would be kind of cool if I could catch a salmon. Then I could be exactly like my cool friends that hold fish. And these guys get all the girls. It's proven. I've seen it. Anyways, I'm here to show you guys in this mini series that I decided to start. We're going to do probably I haven't decided how many parts yet. I'm going to say like 4, but we're going to do a mini part series to help you guys catch some salmon. It's going to start from we're going to do it for complete beginners, as in rods, reels, line, bait, everything you need to get started. I'm going to show you where to start. I'm going to show you what to do. And then I'm going to show some cool clips, hopefully, of me catching them. Anywhere you can catch salmon, from the mouth of the river all the way up top. I'm going to show you guys how to do that, what you need, rods, reels, line, bait, all the cool stuff. I'll show you. So here we go. We're going to start with episode numero 1. How to get started with salmon fishing. So the first things you'll need to know is the absolute basics. And the absolute basics, I would even say, begins without even fishing. That is going to be understanding what salmon are and what they do in order to present a bait to them to try and catch them. Salmon are a migratory fish that spawn in the rivers they were hatched from or that they were born in. They go out to the lake or ocean, depending on where you are, but here it's Lake Ontario. They go out to the lake and they feed until they become large and mature enough to spawn. And when they spawn, they go up the rivers to spawn, they lay their eggs, and they die, essentially. That's just how the salmon life cycles goes. The journey for the salmon starts from the lake all the way up to the river, and there's different stages that you can catch them at. So you can catch them at the stage before they're even in the river, which would be trolling. The next step would that be casting off the pier. Then after that is going to be in the pools of a river, essentially river fishing. Guys would call it, or drift fishing, whatever you'd like to call it. That would be the third sort of way that you can catch salmon. So I'm going to break it all down for you guys to make it super simple for you guys to understand what you're going to need and how you're going to use it. There's 2 main ways that you're going to catch these fish, and I'm going to go into more detail in the other videos, but for these videos I'm going to show you exactly what you need to get started. On top of that, I'm going to show you where you can start. That way, if you want to do a little bit of experimenting, and then I have some more episodes coming that I'm going to show you guys exactly how to break down those 2 techniques, so that way you guys can make your way to mastering those 2 techniques and catching salmon constantly for yourself. So like I said, there's 2 main ways for salmon fishing. That is your casting, so you're going to be throwing a lure, whether that be some sort of spoons or a body bait, really any sort of moving bait or lure that would attract either vibration, it glows in the dark, however you may, you want to say it. That's what's going to attract the salmon to bite. Just like any other fish, it's a reaction sort of strike. There is specific gear that you will want for that as well. Specific gear meaning you're going to want a longer rod and you're going to want a larger reel, because if you do hook a salmon, what tends to happen is they go nuts. If you are at the front of the lake or say off of a pier and it decides to run, all the way back to China, you're going to run out of line. So you want to make sure you have a reel that's got a lot of line and a rod that's got a lot of power to stop those fish. So the rod that you're going to need is what they call a pier casting rod or a lure casting rod for salmon. This one in particular that I've got here is a Fenwick Eagle. This is a 9-foot medium moderate. It is rated to 10 to 20 pound line and 3/8 to a full ounce lure weight. So most of the time you'll be throwing spoons, larger spoons, and say larger body baits. Those will be your most common lures that you will be using. And this rod handles it no problem. I would not go any smaller than 8 foot, but I wouldn't go any larger than 10'6". That would probably be the max for a casting size rod that I would go. But the action is really what's important. You want a medium to moderate action. You want something that's going to be fairly stiff, but you want to have a nice strong backbone. So that way you can make far casts out there as well as bomb lures extremely far. This one is a Shimano Stratic. This is a C3000. This is a pretty expensive reel. Honestly, you don't need anything too crazy expensive, but if you do have the funds, I would suggest definitely getting something that's a little bit more durable. I have used, pretty crappy reels before. The problem that you'll run into is that if you do hook a salmon, the lower end reels don't have good drag. So even though your drag will be cranked and it'll stop the fish, if the drag's not consistent, you can really burn out your reel essentially. And then after, when you go to use it, it'll just be completely locked up because it either melted parts from friction or parts broke from friction. So if you do have the extra funds, I would definitely suggest, getting something a little bit better. So I would definitely say minimum for size, 3,000 for sure. You definitely want the line capacity just in case you do hook one, like I said, and it wants to go all the way back to Germany. I mean, you want to be able to wait for them to slow down and you can start picking up some line back on them. Now, as far as line suggestion, what I'm using on my Shimano Stratic is, this is 15-pound Power Pro. I'm using braid. The reason for braid for sure is 1, durability. 2, casting distance. You can cast very strong braid extremely far because it's a very thin diameter. It's about the same size diameter as, I'm going to say, like 6-pound, I think, monofilament or something like that. So it's very thin, as well as line capacity. You can fit an extremely large amount of braided line on these C3000 reels. I have about, a solid 200 yards, I'd say, close to that at least. Probably your most important thing, and that is going to be your barrel swivel or your snap swivel. This is going to save your line from getting all twisted, not casting properly, because you'll be using spoons and body baits majority of the time, and spoons spin in a clockwise or counterclockwise motion depending on which way they're built, and if you don't have a swivel, it'll twist the crap out of your line. Another point, I guess you could say, that I should note is that, a lot of people would disagree with me with saying, why do you use such thin line, 15-pound line? These salmon are huge. Like, dude, you're not breaking 15-pound. You're not. The only thing that's gonna actually break the line is going to be if the salmon's tooth slices it, which they tend to get these dog teeth. It's just like rabid dog looking. They're gross. The reason you can use lighter line is because of this rod. Putting a lot of the strain on the rod, when you have it bent, the larger rod takes a lot of the load off of your line. And the long rod combination, it's killer. The second way that you can catch salmon is drift fishing. Now, drift fishing refers to, actually has many different names depending where you're from. Some guys call it float fishing, some guys call it bobber fishing, some guys call it drift fishing. There's many different names, but you're floating a float or a bobber down the river with some sort of bait presentation on the bottom, and that's how you're going to try and catch the fish. Now, I'm not going to go into super detail of how to run your rig for drift fishing. I'm going to do that in the next episode of how to catch salmon drifting with eggs or whatever bait you want to use. So, the rod and the reel that I use for this is a Shimano Convergence 10'6", medium heavy, slow action. Slow action means that it bends much deeper into the handle. It is still a very powerful rod. This rod actually is my mooching rod that I use out on the lake when I'm down rigging. And what I did is I just put my center pin on it. This is my 5-inch frog water. This is a really awesome reel. Rob Marquette, you're the man, River Keeper. This rod is your ideal size that I would personally say for catching, salmon drifting skeins. So I'm talking drifting salmon specifically. I wouldn't use this setup for steelhead as well. This would be just for salmon only. You don't need to use a center pin. For this sort of setup, you can use a spinning reel as well. Same spinning reel would apply. If you only have one setup, that way you can switch them between, you can use it for drifting and you can use it for casting. You're going to be using a float, which goes down to your hook, and that's going to be your bait presentation Like I said, I'm not going to go into super detail of what the setup is. I'm just letting you guys know what you can use to get started and what you'll need. And in the next episode, we're going to go over much more grave detail of each specific way to catch salmon. Now, I know people are going to probably ask me, I can't afford 2 setups. What can I do? Easy. If there's only one thing you can do, there's only one way you can fish, you can only afford, one setup, I would definitely go with the 10'6" medium moderate, which is the same style as the casting one, but just go with a larger size. You want that extra 1.5 feet. It does make a difference. Believe it or not, it is great. It'll make a huge difference in your fish controllability for sure. You have all this gear. Now the question is, where do I fish them? To start off, when you are casting, I would for sure start at a pier. Here's one of the biggest tips I can give you right off the bat. Anything that flows into the main lake has potential to hold fish. Don't get caught up with everything. This is the best spot. Mind you, there is better areas where fish tend to congregate first, but don't let anybody ever tell you anything that flows into the main lake has potential to hold fish. Take that as you want. The next way for drift fishing to get yourself started is going to be also at the mouth of the river, not directly at the mouth. I mean, it can be if it's not busy, you can fish the mouth of the river, no problem. The problem is getting your bait farther out. You want it to fish in an area maybe where it's more congregated, where the fish doesn't have all this potential to move around. If you can find the first very large pool before the fish head their way up the river, there's a very good chance that the fish before a rainfall will gather in that area, and it's a great place to start because it's going to be a high concentration of fish, and at that point they're still somewhat fresh. They haven't gone up the river yet, so they're going to be more likely to eat than the fish that have been in the river for 4, 5, 6 days, maybe up to weeks in there, and their metabolism has just absolutely shut down. So there you have it. That is the intro of what you need, the basic knowledge to get yourself interested in salmon fishing. I'm going to leave links in the descriptions below for the gear that I personally use if you'd like to use that as well. They're all Amazon affiliate links. So yeah, I get a kickback if you guys do that. It helps support the channel, and it helps me keep making these videos, guys, so I don't have to go back to work. So all the gear will be listed down below that I use, but this is the absolute beginnings of salmon fishing. This is the intros to what you need. The best way to learn, I'm going to teach you guys as well. I'm going to show you all the cool stuff and all the knowledge that took me years to learn. I'm going to share it with you guys because I wish people did that to me when I was younger. I had to figure it out myself because salmon season is literally around the corner. You guys are going to be ready to rock, and you're going to be catching fish, and everyone's going to be asking you, how are you doing that? The next video will be casting for salmon, the ins and outs, the know-hows, all that cool stuff. So in the meantime, guys, get ready. It's going to be cool. We're going to go through a lot of awesome stuff. Remember, stay freshies. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.